Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today I have a very special item to show you. It's special to me for two reasons. One, it's the first of a kind, and the second is that this was actually a gift from a person that has watched the channel. So what we've got here is actually the very first Android ThinkPad tablet. Now, there were tablet computers, obviously, before this one came along that bore the ThinkPad name, but this would be the first one that would run the Android operating system. And because of that, it was a very important device, and it had to break a lot of molds, and it had to be designed correctly. So let's talk a little bit first about the history of this device, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the specifications. So this device was announced and released in August of 2011, and it was branded obviously with the ThinkPad moniker. It sported a lot of security features that were designed for business customers. It had anti-theft, remote disable, and SD card encryption. Not only that, this was one of very few tablets at the time that was using a capacitive touch ThinkPad style stylus. Now, even the stylus underwent a significant amount of engineering. They tested many different pen lengths before deciding that this was, quote unquote, the perfect length of pen. And you know what? After a certain length, it doesn't really matter how long the pen is. It will feel more or less the same in the hand. This pen does take a quadruple A battery in the interior case, and more interestingly enough, the pressure sensitivity features actually work on many modern displays, including the Surface Book 2, which I thought was particularly fascinating, that a technology developed all the way back then is still forward compatible with the technologies that we're currently using today. One of the other reasons that makes this particular ThinkPad so incredibly important and kind of cool in my mind is that one of the legendary designers behind the ThinkPad brand, David Hill, was very intimately involved, from what I understand, with this project. And it really does show a lot in the design language and the features that this particular machine came with. When this was sent to me, it included two of the original accessories that came with it. One, as you can see, is the leather folio case. There was one that came with the keyboard. However, that one did not arrive. That's totally okay. But you can obviously fold this up into a tent style stand, or you can simply lay it down like so, very reminiscent of the Apple iPad stand. And one of the other features, like I said, was the ThinkPad dock. Now, this dock is interesting for a variety of different ways. First off, it uses the standard barrel plug that we've seen forever during that time. And it was also equipped with a separate headphone and microphone jack, as well as mini USB and a USB 2.0 pass-through. It was kind of interesting that there is no HDMI out like there is on the tablet on the dock, but it is certainly a robust, nice little dock that you could stick up next to your main computer setup and use the device for a variety of different things, other than simply charging it. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the port selection that we have on this tablet. So the very first thing that we should take a look at are the buttons that we have here along the bottom. We have a home button, a back button, a web browser dedicated button, and then a force rotation feature. That actually comes in a fair bit of handy. Along the bottom, we do have our headphone microphone combo jack, a mini HDMI, a micro USB, the charging connecting port, and then we have our first door over here, which contains access to your SD card slot as well as your SIM card slot. Moving around this edge of the device, we have the power on button, and then along the top we have the volume rocker and the storage pen loop if you have the lanyard, and then along the top we have one of the speakers, as well as a little sliding door that gives you access to a USB 2.0 port. In terms of technical specifications, this was equipped with the NVIDIA Tegra 2. That's pretty rare. It also included 1 gigabyte of RAM, and it ran a dual-core 1 gigahertz processor. These never got above Android 4, which is unfortunate in terms of longevity. When you are running an Android platform, there is a certain amount of updates that you'll have before it just simply is no longer supported. And that's probably one of the largest tragedies of this device, is that to use it in a modern context is increasingly difficult. There are things that you can do, of course, like install custom firmware, but you do run the risks of certain things getting bricked, especially on these machines from what I'm reading online, because certain ones are more susceptible to, say, failing the update and leaving you with a brick. And even then, you're only updating it so far. So it's kind of one of the tragedies of running an Android platform full stop, or any mobile platform these days. When it was new, it would sport a 8-hour battery to drive the 10.1-inch display. As I mentioned before, it does have that USB 2.0, mini HDMI, micro USB. The front-facing camera was 2 megapixel, and the rear-facing camera was 5. At any rate, that's enough specifications. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on so you can see what it was like. All right, now that we got this thing powered up, let's go ahead and take a look at this interface. You know, this is very much a custom job, and you can tell, and it is, it's kind of neat. It's a design language that I think has long since died, and whether or not that's good or bad, I'll let you weigh in the comments down below. But it was just, it feels more customized than any other ROM that I've ever experienced. And that to me is pretty neat. So like I said, we've got physical home buttons, back button, the dedicated button for your web browser, and then of course the rotation lock is physically right there. So very much business oriented, to say the least. There's just something nice about having those tactile buttons along the bottom and these thicker bezels. It means that you don't have to be as careful in how you hold the device, and that's kind of nice in its own right. The UI is still pretty smooth, even though it is running that older version of the operating system. But you don't really feel like you're lacking. You got notifications along the bottom side there, and things just seem to, they just seem to feel right. If we tap the top right-hand corner, of course, we will get all of our applications. And from what I understand, this is more or less stock the way that it came. I'm pretty sure this was flashed before it came to me, so you can kind of see what it came with. And pretty sparse, a little bit of what you would call bloatware these days, as well as some specific applications that take advantage of the hardware, like the USB file copy, which is kind of handy. So it's just a much nicer way of dealing with, say, a USB drive. And I'll go ahead and grab this one here. So there we go. We can actually see the contents of this drive here. This happens to be the thumb drive I used to create an elementary image. And you can literally just drag and drop things back and forth. And that's kind of a neat little feature. Kind of wish it was on more business-oriented tablets, if those are even still a thing these days. And of course, it did come with its own note-taking program. So once you were ready to take a note, you could open up a notebook kind of before Microsoft OneNote took off. And pen or palm rejection works pretty well. And the pen latency is very acceptable, especially considering the year that this was made. So if we switch over to the camera, it's not necessarily anything to write home about. It's a 5 megapixel, pretty grainy camera, but it's got some pretty intense digital zoom there. And of course, our rear-facing camera is actually pretty decent. The response rate handles pretty well. So all in all, the ThinkPad Tablet is a fascinating device in terms of just how much thought and care went into the creation of this. And I could see if you have this for any sort of use during the time where Android 4 especially was a current operating system, you would not be lacking anything, I don't think, that you would really want. The ability to do file transfers between USB drives means that you would be reaching for your computer significantly less. If we had something like this now, I think that it would still be quite the contender for a product. With a modern version of, say, like Office OneNote, running Word, being able to transfer documents between your tablet computer to an actual full-fledged desktop, I think would be a pretty neat experience, especially for the business road warrior. At any rate, if you have any questions about this particular device, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And as always, I'm going to leave the big 4 here at the bottom for you. Please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're notified if there are any updates on this particular unit or any other tablets that I feature on the channel, or ThinkPads for that matter. I'll see you later.